Okay, what's up, everybody? So today we are going to be walking through the first guided project in Dataquest's Power BI Data Analyst Learning Path, and that is called Modeling Data in Power BI. So let's jump right into it. You can do this in the Dataquest interface here with the split screen, or you can do it in Power BI on your desktop or laptop if you have a Windows machine. So I'm going to be doing it on my Windows desktop so that we can get the biggest screen possible so that it's easier for you to see what's going on in this video. But because it's a slightly different version of Power BI, there may be some slight differences between what you see here and what you see in the Dataquest interface. So just be aware of that. But everything is pretty much the same. And as you can see, my Power BI session has actually timed out here. But I'm not going to bother reloading it because I won't be using the interface in Dataquest itself. I'm going to be using Power BI that you can see sort of in the background over here. So let's dive into this project, which is going to be analyzing some sales data from a data set that we have. And actually, I guess I will reload this session quickly just to show you. When the session loads, right up here, you'll be able to see the dataset CSV to download, as well as a version of this project where you can actually download the Power BI file and kind of see some of that implemented if you want to. But while that's loading, let's just talk through the rest of this stuff. So we want to answer some questions in our analysis today. Specifically, what were the total sales for this company? Which market, i.e. which country, generated the most sales on average? And which segments were most profitable? Some pretty common business type questions that you might have to answer in a data analyst role. So as with the regular Dataquest courses, we've got sort of our learning information here, and then we've got our instructions, what we should do on the screen, and then here's where you would interact, or in our case, we're going to interact over here in Power BI itself. And I'm just going to drag this window in and out of the screen so that you can see more of what's going on. So our first instructions are just to explore Power BI Desktop. There's not really much to do there, so let's jump on to screen 2. So screen 2 is about loading and exploring the data set. And we can see Dataquest has helpfully given us kind of a summary of the different columns that are in this. And it looks pretty typical for like a sales table where you've got order ID, customer name, segment, country, blah, blah, blah. And then all the financial information like, what amount was the sale, what quantity was purchased, what's the profit. So let's look at the instructions, and the instructions for this screen are just to load the data set into Power BI and check it out. So let's do that. Let's jump over here. We'll hit get data from another source because this is a CSV file. And so we'll select text CSV and hit connect, and I will grab superstoredata.csv. And here we have it. So we could do some transformations right now by hitting transform, but let's just load it up first and see where we're at here. Okay, so this change indicates that the data has loaded. To see it, we're going to need to hop over here and hit the data view. So here we go, and we can already spot some kind of immediate issues here. The biggest one that I can see right off the top is all of our column names are just column 1, column 2, column 3. Not very helpful. It's going to make it a big pain to write like DAX and stuff like that later. So we're definitely going to want to deal with that. We can sort of see the columns that the Dataquest mentioned here. Like this is obviously customer name. I'm guessing this is customer ID. It's probably product ID. Here are sort of our financial, like sales, quantity, profit. And one other thing that we might notice right off the bat is we've got a couple different date formats here. We've got dashes and slashes mixed together. So Power BI can recognize both of those, but that's something we may want to be aware of. And so yeah, we have now inspected our data set. Let's just, that was our only task for this screen. So let's move on to screen 3. Okay, so now we're getting into the real work here. and we need to clean some stuff up in this data set. As we discovered when we inspected it, the headers are meaningless. There are some data type issues, which we actually didn't see because we didn't jump into actually transforming the data, but we'll see that in a minute. And then there's that date issue that I highlighted. So let's jump in and fix those things. So back in Power BI, we're going to hit home over here on the ribbon up top, and then we're going to go to transform data, transform data. This is where we're doing a lot of our work in Power BI, as I'm sure you already know from going through the courses. So our first issue is those column headers. And if we look now, we can see we've got this column with Toby from Algeria, and that's row 1. But then row 2 is our header names that we want. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and remove that top row. So we'll go to remove rows, remove top rows. I'm going to just remove the 1. And now we can go to use first row as headers and just hit that. And now we have the correct headers across the board. And we can see that we didn't actually lose that. Here's Toby from Algeria again. So we didn't actually lose any data by doing that. Power BI is smart enough to kind of figure that out for us. And if we look at our dates, we can see Power BI has actually done something else for us too. When we promoted the headers, it recognized that the date column is a date column because it's called date. And so it just changed it to a date and unified the formatting. It did all that for us. But if we wanted to do that ourselves, so I can go over here, this shows all the steps that we've taken, or that in this case, Power BI has taken on its own. So I can remove that. Now we're back to our weird mix of dates. We can see we've got some slashes and some dashes. But you'll see if I change this, if we change the data type to date, now it's fixed again. So we fixed that. While we're in here, let's just take a quick look and see what other data type issues we might have. And I can see sales is stored as a string. We don't want that. That's a financial measure. So let's do fixed decimal. And profit ditto. Whoops, clicked the wrong thing there, but fixed decimal. And quantity, again, is stored as a string, but that should be a whole number because you can't buy like 2.5 printers, at least not at most stores. So other than that, everything in this table is stored as a string other than the things that we've changed. But it looks, at a quick glance anyway, it looks like string is the appropriate data type for all of these columns. So let's say we're all set on that for now. And we're going to hit close and apply. And Power BI is going to make our changes. And now we can see that's happened because we've got all of our correct headers there. Now is probably also a good time to save the project, and that's a good practice to just save frequently as you're working. So I have gone ahead and saved it. As you can see, I already added a file name, but if you haven't done that, you should do that as well. And just make sure if you're working, whether you're working locally or in Dataquest, actually, it's good practice to save frequently. So let's hop over to the next one. And our next task is to transform the data set. This is where we're starting to get into sort of like doing some real analysis, or in this case, preparing for real analysis. We want to get a little bit more granular and maybe look at like what happened in a specific year or what happened in a specific month. And that's a little complicated if we just have a date column that has day, month, and year all together. So what we have been tasked with doing for this screen is to create a year column and a month column using DAX functions. So let's do that. So again, we're going right back into transforming the data here. And we are so to do this, we're going to need to add a new step. So I'm going to go over here to the applied steps. I'm going to right click and then do insert step after. And so now we can see we've got a custom step. Now, what we actually want to do here is add a column. So up in the ribbon up top here, I'm going to hit add column, and then we're going to hit custom column because we're going to just use a DAX formula to give this to us. So let's start with the year. So our formula is going to be date.year. And we're pulling that out of the date column. And we want this column to be called year, so let's hit year and let's hit OK. And booyah, we've got a year column as expected. So now we want to just do the same thing again because we also wanted to add a month column. So again, let's go to insert step after, and we're already in add column up here. So we can just click custom column, and then we're going to enter essentially the same formula, except for instead of year, it's going to be month. So date.month, and then we're pulling from date, and we'll call this column month. And there we go. We've got our month column. So we're all set with that step. Let's move on to, oh, whoops, no, we're not. So let us remember, it's always good practice to do this. Let's go back to home in the ribbon up here and hit close and apply. And so Power BI is going to add those, and we're going to go ahead and save our project. There we go. Almost got me. Okay, so let's hop on to the next screen, and now we're going to be looking at total sales, which means that we need to add a new measure to our data. And that's something we'll do a little bit differently, as you know from the courses that you've already taken to get to this point, presumably. So on this screen, the question that we're going to be trying to answer is, what were the total sales for the company? This will be the first screen where we actually answer one of these questions that we set out to answer. So to do that, we're going to need to create a new measure called total sales, and we'll use the sum function to add those sales up, and then we'll be able to see the total sales for the company. So let's do it. So for this one, we don't need to transform the data. We can stay right here in the data pane, and I'm going to open this up over here, and we're going to click on these three dots and go to new measure. And now we've got our bar where we can enter the formula for our measure up here. So it's going to be total sales equals the sum of Superstore data. And you can see it's sort of filling this information in for us, so we don't even really have to type it, the sales column. And just close that parentheses. We're all set. So I'm just going to hit enter. And our measure, as we can see over here, has been added. So let us now go over to the report view, and we'll create our first little visualization, which is going to be very simple. We can just make a stack column chart. Let's drag total sales onto it. And we can see that the total sales for the company are $12.6 million. So that's pretty good. That's granted, that's over a number of years, but still not bad at all. So we've got our total sales. And there's our first little visualization. We'll maybe make that a little bit smaller. And we're ready to move on to the next screen. We've already answered our first question here. So now we want to look at the total sales by year with category. And so that is a little more involved, but frankly, not that much. We just are going to create a table to look at that, and we'll drag year, category, and total sales over to it. So let's do that. We don't even have to go back to the data. We can stay right here, because we already have done our data preparation. Maybe make this one a little bit bigger, and we can drag it up here. And let's drag over, let's see, category, total sales, and year. And now we've got this nice table that shows us the total sales by year. And of course, we could sort this if we wanted to see that the technology category in 2015, that's the year and category where we had the highest number of sales. Looks like technology in general is the big seller for this company. So cool. We've answered yet another question just by that one measure that we created and dragging things into our report interface here. It's really, really powerful. So let's move on to the next screen. Top 3 sales on average. So now we want to answer a tougher question, which is which market, and here by market we mean country, generated the most sales on average, or what are the top 3? So we're going to need to create another new measure. This one's going to be called average sales. And then we'll use this report screen to dig into that information more by country. So for now, let's go over here. We will again create a new measure. And up here, we can type our formula. We'll call it average sales And so we're going to use the average function this time. And Superstore data, again, it's sort of filling all this in for us. Just scroll down to choose sales, close parentheses. And now our average sales measure has been created, as we can see over here. So now let's jump back over here. And we can just drag country right onto the screen, and it should create a map like this for you here. Now, if this doesn't work, if you get an error message, Power BI can be kind of funky about permissions for this map visualization specifically. So you may have to mess around a little bit in settings. There's a setting where you can enable this, and it's actually, if you have the free version of Power BI, it's turned off by default. So if you try to do this and it doesn't work, dig into settings. But anyway, so here's our chart of just countries, and then all we need to do is drag average sales onto that. And we can see that now these dots have scaled to indicate the size of the average sales coming from each country. Now, this is a cool visualization. It doesn't actually really help us answer our question, which are the top three, because we can't easily see from this which of the circles are the biggest. I mean, this one's clearly pretty big, so I'm guessing Lesotho's in the top three, but Europe is all scrunched together. So we could zoom in, but an easier way to answer that question quickly is probably just going to be, let's just create a table, and we'll just drag country and average sales onto that. And we need to make this bigger so we can actually see it. And then we just sort this. And yep, we can see Lesotho is the number one in terms of average sales, and then Montenegro, and then Chad. So those are our top three countries for average sales, and we have answered another one of our analytical questions. So let's hop back over into the Dataquest interface, and we will jump to the 8th screen. And this is where we're getting into a little bit more advanced stuff, but we want to compute the net profit by segment, specifically for the year 2016. Now, by default, Power BI is not going to do that. It's going to look at all the data that we have. So to create that kind of analysis, we're going to use the calculate function, where we can kind of override that and specify only look at the data from 2016 in this case. So let us jump in and do that. So to do this, we got to go back to our data view. And now we're looking at profits, but we need to create a new measure once again. New measure. And so this formula is a little bit more complicated, but not really that much. So we'll call it net profit 2016 equals, and then we'll use calculate. And so then what we want it to do is the sum of profit, but only for 2016. So the first thing we're going to tell it is to just do the sum of profit. So we'll do sum and then Superstore data profit, and then we'll close that. But now we want to tell it only look at 2016. So we need to do Superstore data. Whoops. Year. There we go. Had to scroll down. So now we want to tell it only do this when the year equals 2016. And notice that I put it in quotes because that data type is a string. We could change that to something else if we didn't want to do that, but because it's a string, it needs to be in quotation marks like that for this to work. So I think we've got the parentheses closed correctly. So let's hit enter. And there we go. We've got our net profit 2016 measure now created. So now we can hop back over to this table, and we wanted to analyze it by segment, right? So let's add another table. Whoops. If you have one of these selected, it's not going to add another one. So I need to unselect that and then double click table. Let's just make this bigger immediately. And we're going to drag over segment and net profit 2016. And now we can see that the largest segment in terms of profit, or the most profitable segment in 2016, was consumer. So we have once again answered another one of our questions. And if we hop back over to the Dataquest interface here, we can see that that is the end of this project. So there's a couple ideas for next steps here, but we have done all the things that we set out to do. We've answered the questions we set out to answer, and we have created a pretty basic, but still very powerful Power BI analysis here. Now, if you do want to dig into some next steps, there's quite a few different directions that you could go with this. Obviously, one of them is that this report is giving us the information that we need. It's not exactly the most exciting or visually attractive presentation ever. So there's a lot that we could do to clean this up and make it more readable, more digestible, easier to understand, more meaningful. And that's actually something that you will dig into in the courses that follow this project on Dataquest. But if you want more practice with the analysis side of it, there is a ton more data that we could dig into here as well. So if you wanted to, you could do some additional analysis to, I don't know, try to find answers to any kind of question you want. We looked at net profit in 2016. What about the other years, and how does each year compare? We've got some customers here. Who's the customer who's spent the most money in any given year, or maybe over the entire data set? Which products are the most profitable? Which products have generated the most revenue? Which products have sold the most in terms of overall quantity? Which categories, which product categories have sold the most or are the most profitable? So there's a million different questions that you could dig into. Maybe not a million, but there's a lot of different questions you could dig into just in this data set alone. So those are all ideas to kind of take this project to the next level. If that's something you're interested in, I would definitely encourage you to do that. Kind of take this and make it your own, especially if you want to use this as a portfolio project, because there's all kinds of stuff in here that we really didn't dig into. But that wraps up the guided project for today. So we will see you again to take a look at one of the next guided projects in the Power BI path soon.